Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Tom again for This is Tom's World Live. Once again, I am starting my show with 0 viewers. Uh-oh. I do have a viewer. Wait, why aren't you registering as a viewer, whoever you are, BB3 TV? I assume you must be Nighthawk. Yeah, it's weird. It says 0 viewers on my StreamYard, so that's kind of strange. Maybe because it's BB3 viewing its own. I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, so welcome to another episode of This is Tom's World. I know it has not yet been a week. I know I just did one on Monday, I believe it was, and I'm doing another one today. Why? Because I don't have a scheduled time and day yet. I'm just kind of testing the waters with my This is Tom's World Live stuff to see how well it does on BB3. If it doesn't do well, I tried and it goes away. If it does do well and it does get views even in the replays and stuff, then cool, we'll keep it going and we'll establish a day and a time for me to do this. But since I had off from work today and it was a good day, I got to see my son. I had lunch with him. It was a good time, and always, because come on, he's my son. How can he not be cool? He's awesome. He's the best. And tonight I get to see my beautiful goddess and I get to hang out with her. So all in all, it's been a good day and it's going to be a great night. So I figured, why not sandwich in between that, doing another Tom's World Live. So for this one, what we're going to be watching is, the first video is me going to the historical site of where George Washington crossed the Delaware, Washington's Crossing Park. I didn't do an extensive video on that. There's a lot more to see in the area, even on the New Jersey side. Let me see. It almost always makes me BB3 when I try to view the lives. It always will. But it depends if you're watching on a computer versus on a phone. If you're watching on a phone, you can click the notification from your profile. If you're watching on a computer while you're watching this, down in the comments, you'll see the BB3 logo next to it. I think that's where you can click on it, and then you can change to your regular profile. So all depends on how you're watching. But anyway, so I go to Washington's Crossing. There's a lot more to see, even on the New Jersey side, because there's a little tiny itty bitty bridge that you could drive across between the Philadelphia or Pennsylvania side and the New Jersey side of the Delaware. And you can walk across it, which I did. And I do have a fear of heights. So, this bridge is not terribly high, but it's high enough that it triggered the fear of heights. Not to mention the fact that the bridge is so rickety that every time a car drives by, I can hear the metal clanking and everything. And you'll be able to hear it in the video. And I will reference that in the video as well. I do believe. It's been a while since I watched that one. So we're gonna explore the area there. They do have like a little village of houses, like blacksmith houses and stuff like that were around after Washington did his crossing and stuff like that. And I believe there's even an inn there that they still have, that Washington and his troops had stayed at before they ventured across the very extremely icy Delaware River at that time. And there were multiple points where different people were supposed to be crossing the Delaware, one of which is down at my favorite spot in the world, near Neshaminy State Park, where I work and where I previously volunteered, and me and a bunch of other volunteers had cleared out this 100-year-old garden. Those videos we haven't started showing yet. They're to come in future videos should I continue to do this. And that whole process is amazing. When you see what we started with and what we ended up with, and now the plants and flowers and stuff that we put in last year, they're all starting to come back. So it's really exciting. Totally different story. I got sidetracked, like, oh, look, squirrel. So anyway, the second video is the first documentary type style that I had done, and the only one I had done to date. And I acquired the help of a friend, Mr. Otis B. Dreads. He helped do the narrating for most of the video. I did a little bit of the narration at the end, but he did most of the narration for me. And that whole video took over 2 months to do, from the day that I took the original footage, which some of which is sprinkled in here and there, but it's mostly images and stuff like that. But it's really interesting information when you hear how it helped shape a lot of things, like the abolitionist movement and things like that, equality amongst the races and things. This place, Byberry Hall, that is on the same land as the Byberry Friends Meeting House, which is the Quaker Meeting House. It helped a lot of people to prevail past certain hindrances and things. What's up, Dom? What's up, Taryn? I guess you're done your show if you're commenting on mine. I'm glad you guys are done. I didn't want to step on the heels of you and April both being on a show and then like having to try to compete with you, because I knew there was no way in hell I can. But yeah, the two videos are very cool. They're both historical, and I guess since now we have 3 people in the chat room, I could just get the first video started. So let me bring that up. Gotta share video clip and Washington Crossing. Here we go. Hey everyone, and welcome to another installment of Tom's World. I don't know why the beginning of the video seems really sped up, like I'm talking like I don't know how old everybody is, if they remember the Micro Machines guy from the 80s commercials who talked really fast. It almost seems like that, but I think that's just because somehow in the editing process I must have sped up the video a little bit. So let me start that over so you can try to keep up. Hey everyone, and welcome to another installment of Tom's World. In today's video, we're celebrating the fact that my channel has reached 300 subscribers. So we're in a new location, and let's check it out. Now this is my old intro that I don't use anymore. The reason I don't use it is because I've been told by bigger YouTubers you're better off not using an intro. So, as I said, we're here in a new location celebrating the fact that my channel has finally reached 300 subscribers. Actually 307 at the time I filmed it. Side note, I am now at 830 subscribers. So let's check out this new location. We are at historic Washington Crossing Park. All of you better be one of them. Let's take a look. I'm just telling you. So starting off here at the Visitor Center. All right, I'm going to stop it again just because I want to make this point. Everybody watching this, whether you're watching it live, whether you're watching the replay, if you have not already done so, and I'm going to say it again before this video's out, because I'm promoting videos from my YouTube channel. So of course I got to work it in there and I got to whore it out. If you have not already done so, go to youtube.com/thisistomsworld. All one word, no punctuation, no spaces, no nothing. This is Tom's World. Go there and hit the subscribe button. Even if you don't watch any of my videos, I don't care. Just help me get my subscriber number up to 1,000. I've been creeping up to it slowly for the last, 4 or 5 months. And I'm just not getting there. I mean, I'm getting the traffic on my videos. I'm getting views and stuff. I'm just not getting subscribers. So you could all help me tremendously by doing that. Anyway, back to the video. We're greeted by this tall pillar with a statue of George Washington at the top of it, commemorating the area where he crossed the Delaware River. Let's check out the stone around here to give us a little information. Stone says, near this spot, Washington crossed the Delaware on Christmas night, 1776, the eve of the Battle of Trenton. So it was near this spot, probably closer over the bridge. Right now. I did have one of the many old houses on the property here in Washington Crossing Park. This one is called the Hibbs House. A little info on the Hibbs house. Nothing to do with Washington, but still. This here is the blacksmith shop. This is not the original. This is actually the 3rd reincarnation of this shop. Apparently, this whole place used to be like a tiny little village. And here's some info on the blacksmith shop. And if these things go by too quick for you to read, you can always go to youtube.com/thisistomsworld, watch the video and pause it so you can read it. As you can tell, walking back from the blacksmith shop, starting with the Hibbs house. I know, I'm relentless. Blacksmith shop is there. You can see how this was just like a tiny little village along the Delaware. Tiny little village. It's not Western. And again, it was roughly right about there. Groundhog Day moment. Where Washington crossed the Delaware. And then he and his army made the 9. and go back there for a second. So just imagine this area right here, all the paintings and all the illustrations that you've seen throughout your life, throughout your school career, like through elementary school, middle school, high school, all the little illustrations you've seen depicting that crossing of the Delaware where the ice pieces were like huge and everybody's going. It's exactly, Nighthawk. That's why I said I had the groundhog moment. Just a tiny little village in western Pennsylvania. Sorry, Groundhog Day. Anyway, but just imagine this right here. This area of the Delaware is where George Washington crossed with multiple boats, loaded up with cannons, with horses. And you'll see later on in the video, they have like a little barn or a building of sorts, and it has replicas of what those boats looked like. And then you can imagine with those that they had horses in them, they had cannons in them, and they took them across and they marched up to Trenton and had the battle there. I don't know the entire story of the Battle of Trenton and everything, but like had that not happened, we may not be in this country today. I mean, it was the humble beginnings of stuff like that. So it's just it's super rich history right here, and I could feel that as I walked around. About there, where Washington crossed the Delaware. And by the way, this was
and then
September
he and his army
2020.
made the 9-mile trek to Trenton.
What's up, Jonas?
While that battle was not an epic battle by any means, it was the beginning of what founded the country and our freedom.
See?
Very cool. Have no idea what that little building is. Maybe we'll find out.
I never found out. Spoiler alert.
Another building. We'll get some info on this. Okay, apparently this was the Fry House.
Where's the burger house, man?
Oh, it was the blacksmith's house. So this was his house, and then his shop was right next door. Now this one, I'm guessing, is the boathouse, as there's a boat in there. I did read something about that on the way in.
So here's the replicas of those boats.
And from what I read, these boats here are replicas of the same types of boats that Washington and his army used to cross the Delaware. Not only the soldiers, but their horses as well.
And cannons.
There's just a lot of information there. I'll zoom in on it if you want. You can pause the video to try to read it all, but I'm not going to read all that.
Well, you can't pause it here. You have to go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/thisistomsworld.
Here is a painting depicting the crossing.
So you can
that
see the
icy
horses
day
and
on the
boats.
Delaware. Long before we polluted that. Which actually, lately, doesn't look too bad. It almost looks like it got cleaned out somehow. But we'll see that when we go across the bridge, if I go across the bridge.
No idea how the hell they cleaned the Delaware River.
But you can see there, same type of boats we're looking at here. I'm sure it's hard to appreciate on the video how big these boats are.
They were monstrous.
But they are monstrous.
Oh my God, I didn't even know I said that word.
There's also an old cannon here.
Sorry.
I'd imagine they took those with them as well.
It's been a long time since I watched this.
And here we have the back of what on the map is called McConkey's Ferry Inn. You heard that right, McConkey's Ferry Inn. I hear the name Conkey and I think of Pee-wee's Playhouse. And yes, I know I'm dating myself by saying that.
I think this inn was there. I'm not
You have this
sure.
thing here.
But I think it was there back then.
Doesn't go down very deep. Don't know what this is. If this was used for storage or imprisoning people, I have no idea. Maybe this sign over here will tell us. McConkey's Ferry Inn. So you thought I was kidding. 18th century inn and tavern. Sounds like my kind of place. It was owned by Samuel McConkey. Army's encampment in Bucks County, December 1776.
So it was there. Maybe not as big as it is now, but it was there.
So apparently this house here was the Malin K. Taylor house. It was built circa 1817 for one of the founders of Taylorsville, the little village that we're in, now known as Washington Crossing. It shows the status and prosperity of the Taylor family in the community. So they were obviously important and rich people. Way in the back there's a little gazebo in the back. Don't know if we're allowed back there, so I'm not going to trek back. There's one more building this way. There's a slightly better view of the gazebo. This is as close as I'm getting though. As I said, I don't know if we're allowed down there. Very well maintained lawn though.
One thing you may notice that differs between Tom on BB3 TV and Tom in This Is Tom's World, and I don't know if I mentioned it in my last show, because I went on to do a second show that night, and I had quite a few beers before and during that show. But one thing that differs is that you will not hear me cursing at all during my videos. And I do that for a purpose. So that way, whenever the day comes that I actually get monetized, and Chaos, I see that you sent me a message. I'll look at it in a second. When the day comes that I do get monetized, I don't want any of my videos to not be monetizable, if that's a word, monetizable. But anyway, just wanted to point that out.
Here's the back of the general store. We'll go around to the front and read the plaque. Well, there's the front of the general store. Taylorsville Store General Merchandise. M.K. Taylor and Sons Props. There's no plaque there, so there's nothing to read. But apparently this was the general store for the entire little village here. I think now we're going to try to go over to the New Jersey side. And walk across the Delaware. Here we go. I've never walked across a bridge that goes over the Delaware River. And since we're not up that high, this shouldn't trigger my fear of heights too much. I'm okay right now.
It kind of did.
Now, if I was crossing the bridges down in Philadelphia, that would trigger my fear of heights. Cars make a strange sound when they go across here because it's all metal grating. Wow. Alright, just about there. I have no idea what's on this side. I did see a video on this place where they did have some historic things on this side, but we'll see. I know that house over there, that's got to be something historic.
It's mine.
And apparently New Jersey is having just as bad of a problem with the spotted lantern flies as we are in Philly.
I hate those. It looks old.
Well, while it's a cool house, doesn't seem that it's actually that old. Seems like the signage just has it going back to 1961. Something to do with the people who work on the gardens. Right next to it is this thing. I at first thought it was some kind of little decorative bridge, but my best guess, even though there's no signage letting me know, this was probably a ferry that went across.
That's what it was.
Don't know how old it is.
Chaos?
Oh, there is a sign. It was hiding in the bushes. Let's see. Ferry site. At this site before 1748, a ferry was first owned and operated by Garrett Johnson. It was used to transport artillery from Pennsylvania to New Jersey the night Washington crossed the Delaware, December 25th, 1776. At that time, it was operated by James Slack.
Slack.
This ferry is a full-scale, authentic reproduction of the type seen on the Delaware River in the 18th century. So this isn't as old as that, but as old as that. But hey, it does look old. But this is the same type of ferry that they had. I guess this is what, you know, all the cannons, those old cannons that we saw, which may be replicas or they might be original, I'm not sure. They would load them onto here. And this is probably how they took the horses across as well, while the men just took the boats.
I have one person watching.
And way over there is where I
it's you.
started this adventure, at the visitor center. Can just about barely make out that little stone commemorating the crossing. Upon closer examination, this building is not old at all.
It's the bathroom.
My best guess is this is probably the visitor center on the New Jersey side. Find out in a second. Well, I turned out to be wrong. These are the bathrooms.
How about take a shot every time I say the word ferry? How about that?
So, just a little history before we leave New Jersey to go back to PA. I'll leave it up there for a minute for you to read.
I wasn't about to read all that. I knew I would have messed it up somehow. I'd have fumbled on some word or something.
Okay, if you want to read the whole thing, you can just hit the pause button. But I'm going to get out of here because I am sweating. And I feel strange being in New Jersey. Especially since the car is way over there, across the Delaware.
I never parked in one state and walked to another.
And here we are, crossing the Delaware by foot again. So I'm guessing that island there is the island they were talking about on that sign back there in Jersey, where he hid the boats and the ferries so that the British wouldn't find them.
And the wee hours.
That seems to be really the only island around. I mean, it's entirely possible maybe there was another one that's no longer there, but still.
You can't hear the clank.
This bridge makes way too much noise. Not just the cars going over it, but the metal clanking.
Exactly.
As you walk by it.
It's scary, man.
Oh well. Anyway, officially in PA again. And now I can start my trek back to the car. And here's a closer look at that island. The one that I suspect that they were talking about, that Washington hid the boats behind. There was probably a lot more brush there then, so they weren't able to see them. And this island was probably a lot bigger then too.
Erosion.
It's weird, it almost forks off here a little bit, the river.
Fork off.
But my guess is this would be that island. Back here at the Welcome Center on the PA side.
Full disclosure, there is a very, very corny video transition moment coming up. Because when I did the wrap up, I didn't want to be here because there was a lot of maintenance people working the area and there was a lot of lawn mowers going on. So I couldn't just go off to the side somewhere and do the wrap up like I normally would. So I decided to do the wrap up in my very favorite place in the world, which is, what's up, Ray? Which is at the garden over in the Chamonix State Park. So I did a little corny transition here. So just a forewarning. And yes, I know it's corny.
They have a replica of one of the cannons. Of course, obviously much more modern. Not by design, but just by the condition. Still pretty cool though. Looking down the barrel.
At this point, I got the idea.
Well, I was hoping that was going to teleport me back to the Chamonix State Park. Let me try it again. Wow. Can't believe that worked. Yeah, I know that was corny. I had to do it though.
This is my garden.
Here I am back in
Preview.
Sorobia, the Chamonix State Park.
Some of you have seen it. Most of you have not.
Had to come here to do my wrap up because there was just too many people over there in Washington Crossing, so I decided to come here.
All these paths you see were dug out by me and the other volunteers.
So yeah, it was just getting a little too crowded over there at Washington Crossing. Plus it was getting loud. The maintenance guys were taking care of the lawn, a lot of lawn mowers and stuff going on. So I decided to come back here to do my wrap up. But not only for that reason, I also wanted to give a huge shout out and a thank you to Red House Bagels. 2 weekends ago, they stopped by and they dropped off some bagels and drinks for me and the other volunteers. I gotta say, they were the freshest bagels I've had in a very, very long time. So I highly recommend them. So I will put their information up right now so that you can check them out for yourself.
You can see my face is a bit rounder in this than it is now. I guess I'm losing weight.
So hopefully you enjoyed our trip over to Washington Crossing Park. I know I did. It's a very beautiful place. It is rich in history on both sides of the Delaware, and I only got to see a small fraction of what's there. I will be going back there at some point. I want to check it all out, but for now, that's going to have to do for today. So thank you all for the 300 subscribers. Actually, as I mentioned, I'm at 307 right now, but thank you for getting me past the 300 mark. It means a lot to me, and I love all the comments and support that you all give me. And I guess that's a wrap. So I'm going to go home, and I will see you all in the next one. Just remember to stay safe, stay healthy, and take care.
My little ending video. I actually took this footage. I did mention that last time. It was just with a much older camera. That's why it looks different. So anyway, let me get that out of there. So that was the first video. That was me going to Washington's Crossing. I have not yet been back there to do a more in-depth video to see what else there is to see, because there is within I think it's within like a 4 or 5 mile radius of the place. There's tons of stuff to see. There is this one tower that is like really high up, but it's also on a hill, which makes it seem even higher. I think it's called Bowman's Tower, and that had something to do with like wartime stuff for the archers and things like that. I assume. Well, unless Bowman was the name of the person. I don't know. I haven't really done much research into that. However, I have seen many videos of people going up there. And as I mentioned, I do have a fear of heights, so that's a factor in going up there. Maybe once I reach 1,000 subscribers, maybe I'll make that a goal for the 1,000 subscriber mark. That I will face my fears. I will go up there and I will make a video of the place. It's the whole area is like rich in history. It's really interesting, really beautiful. I don't know what else there is to say about that. So so for the next video, because now we're at the halfway mark of the show, for the next video, it was the first time that I did a documentary style type video, and it was of this place called Byberry Meeting Hall, or Byberry Meeting, not Hall. There's Byberry Hall, which is part of the land that's there, but it's the Byberry Friends Meeting. So a meeting is a place of worship for the Quakers, and the meeting house has gone through at least a few different transitions since it was first built. The very first one was built early on, really early on, and the version that we see now, the third version, was built in the early 1800s. It's been improved over the years. I've actually seen it change in my lifetime, like the outside, but the inside is identical to the way it's been since the day it was built. And you'll get to see all of that. And they have a very cool, like the very first library in the area on the second floor of the schoolhouse that's there. So there's 3 buildings. There's a schoolhouse, there's the meeting house, and then there's Byberry Hall. The schoolhouse has been around for a long time as well. It was one of the first schoolhouses in the area, I believe. The meeting house, as I said, been around. This version of it has been around since the early 1800s, And off the top of my head, for the life of me, I can't remember exactly when Byberry Hall was made, but that was made as like a speaking hall. And most of the people that spoke there were part of the abolitionist movement, the equality of the races, things like that. There was a lot of stuff going on here in Philly at that time. A lot of little mini wars, if you wanted to call them that. But we do touch on that in the video. And as I mentioned, most of the narration is done by my friend Otis B. Dreads, who has been on a hiatus from doing his show, Night of the Living Dreads. But I know in my heart of hearts that show will be back once things settle down for him and everything. And I'm almost positive he will be back with that. He loved that way too much to let it go, and we all loved it as well. So the schoolhouse, as I was saying, on the second floor of the schoolhouse was the very first library in the area. They actually have stuffed animals in there, and when I say stuffed animals, I don't mean like little plush toys. I mean real animals that were taxidermied of the area, just to showcase all the different animals that were in the area at the time. Now, some of these animals are no longer in the area. They've migrated or died off from this area. And it was really cool to see all that stuff. So, I mean, I can go on and on and on about the explanation, but let's just start the video because the video is very cool. So let me get rid of the old one here and open video file, Byberry Friends. Here we go.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another installment of Tom's World. This is a video I've been waiting to put out for almost 2 months now. It's going to be a video unlike any other one I've put up on my channel, as it's going to be more documentary type style. And I've been keeping it under wraps because I didn't want anybody to jump the gun and put out a history video before me, because I actually have the privilege of being the first one. You can search all you want and you'll find articles all over the place, but you're not going to find another video that goes into the history of the place that I'm about to take you. And let me show you what that place is as we see it from the road when we go past this hundreds, if not thousands of times throughout the course of a year. So here we are at the very corner, or at the very crossroads of Byberry Road and Thornton Road. And you see that wall right there and the little buildings behind it? Chances are we have all driven past this so many times, for the people that live locally anyway, and never give it a thought about what it is. Well, now you're gonna find out. And just as a little side note, the man that you're about to hear doing the narration for this video is a good friend of mine. His name is Otis B. Dreads, and you can find him at nightofTheLivingDreads.com. That's Dreads with no A in it. And I'll put the link to that down in the description. He has his own website. He has a Facebook podcast, or a video podcast that he does every week. And he also has a YouTube channel. So I'll put links to all of that in the description. And what he does is mostly right now it's centered on the independent horror film industry, and he has some really good shows, really interesting people on when they interview people, and go watch it and see if it's your cup of tea.
I actually got to be like, Dom and I were regulars on his show at one point for a little while before he decided to go into the indie horror and stuff. And it was just him and Jackal Monkey, and they would interview people from the independent horror film industry. I was honored enough to be on one of their shows, and they knew they better damn well have me on their show when they interviewed 2 of the 3 women from the original Evil Dead movie. So I had the privilege of being part of the interviewing process for them. That was an awesome show. I was totally fanboying, and I mean, the Evil Dead is my favorite string of horror movies, if you even want to call them horror, because as it grew, it became more of a comedy than a horror, but it still had a horror aspect to it. And so yeah, just again, little squirrel moment kind of thing. I hit play.
If you like horror movies, especially independent films, you're gonna like his podcast. Anyway, let's get in here and get into this history.
The first record of a formal school building in Byberry Township was next to the Meeting House in 1710 and run by the meeting. A monthly fee was required except for those in need. In 1776, one of the Friends, John Eastburn, bequeathed his estate to establish a school fund. The fund was used immediately to construct a new schoolhouse in the location. It was so successful that it quickly required an addition and was outgrown again by 1823 when the present schoolhouse was constructed. In the present schoolhouse, the first floor was a designated classroom to hold 50 students. The second floor purposely constructed as the new location for the Byberry Library.
That's right, it
The
rhymes.
Byberry Library was established by a group of 23 members of the meeting, including John Comley in 1794. Each member gave a small contribution for the initial purchase of more than 70 books. They and future members maintained an annual subscription. The library was initially housed in the home of a friend, but in 1798, it was moved to the schoolhouse. The stairs for the second floor library were on the exterior of the building. This space was shared when additional classroom space was needed for the girls' school between 1827 and 1837. It is unknown when the current wood frame section was constructed to house the stairs, but it was quite early. In 1870, the library held more than 2,000 volumes. It remained open to researchers until 2010, at which time most of the library records and volumes were donated to the Friends Historical Library at Swarthmore College. The schoolhouse was also used for public educational lectures for adults. After a series of lectures on astronomy proved wildly popular, John Comley suggested the creation of the Byberry Philosophical Society in 1829. In 1832, the society furthered their mission and established a cabinet of curiosities, a collection of scientific specimens.
They were all real
The
animals.
collection is said to have once held over 2,000 specimens. The society held a weekly lecture series well into the 20th century, initially at the schoolhouse until moving to Byberry Hall in 1846. The society remained active until 1959, at which time its records and the remainder of the cabinet were placed under the care of the Byberry Friends Meeting. Specimens from the cabinet that remain are on display in the second floor of the schoolhouse, as are the remaining volumes from the library.
Figure how old these specimens
Byberry
are.
School had a number of
Still there.
excellent teachers and was respected for teaching subjects such as geometry, grammar, and algebra. These were beyond the typical schooling for rural children, which was generally confined to basic writing and arithmetic. The most famous of the teachers was John Comley. He is a widely recognized figure in Quaker history not because of his teaching, but his role in the separation of 1827, the Schism. However, his role in education should not be ignored. He taught at Byberry twice, first in the 1790s. He left for 1 year to teach at the West Helm School in Chester County, where he met his wife before coming back to Byberry School in 1804. Upon his return, he added Latin and Greek to the curriculum. In 1803, he authored his first educational book. Since that time, he wrote numerous books on grammar, spelling, and a reader, an advanced textbook to help students practice the lessons of other subjects. These books were revised, reprinted, and distributed around the country into the late 19th century. Original copies of the book are available in the Byberry Library. Today, the Byberry Schoolhouse continues, for over 300 years, to be a resource for equal opportunity access to high-quality childcare via a structured preschool program.
It is still an active preschool.
The present meeting house is the third on the property.
You like
the
that
first was
transition?
constructed to the north of the burial ground in 1694. It was a small log structure that only lasted
1694. Now, this picture here is not the actual it's not the actual meeting house that was built, but it looks similar to the original meeting house that was built back in 1600s. I mean, wow. It just blows my mind that this is literally minutes from my house. All my life has gone by. I never knew how much history was there. I didn't care, to be honest. As a younger guy, I didn't care. I didn't give a shit about history and stuff like that. But as I get older, I'm finding that I do. And as I find out the different things in the area surrounding where I live, within like 10, 20 miles of where I live, just that alone, it's really rich in history, and I still have so much more to do. But I don't want to deter from this video too much, so I'll get back to it.
Lasted about 20 years before a stone building was constructed in 1714. Due to the quickly expanding population, the meeting house required an addition in 1753. The township continued to grow, with the majority of its residents being members of the meeting. In 1800, the township had a population of 579. In just 10 years, it grew to 765. Of these, more than half, 446, were members of the meeting. Outgrown, the old stone meeting house was demolished in 1808, and the present meeting house was constructed. Initially, meeting houses tended to be one room to hold both meeting for worship and meeting for business. The men's and women's meeting for business oversaw different subjects for the meeting, and having only one room made it difficult to separate meeting for business. Eventually, many meeting houses constructed an addition of a separate room for the women's meeting for business. However, this was felt to be unequal. After meeting for worship, the women had to leave the room to go to their space. Equality between the meeting for business began to be reflected in the meeting house form and was truly achieved in 1768 with the design of the Buckingham Meeting House. Although the size of the meeting houses would vary depending on the population of the meeting, this Buckingham form was repeated almost exclusively through 1830 and remained the prominent form through the late 19th century. This form, referred to as the double meeting house or the Buckingham model, created two chambers identical on both the interior and exterior. Although the meeting house was divided, the division wasn't intended as an element of exclusion, but two separate but equal chambers.
See, those walls.
The room is united during meeting for worship, but
as he's about to explain, and you might miss it, those walls that you see, like how it has big empty slots in it, those panels come down, and they would make it so that it would keep the sound of the women's meeting out from the sound of the men's meeting. Like when they were there for worship, they had them all open so that everybody could be there and everybody could worship on their own. And the interesting thing that I found out through talking to the woman that was giving me the tour of this place, she didn't want to be on camera, and she didn't want to have her voice on camera, which is why I went with the voiceovers, and I brought on Otis to do the voiceover for me because he's got the perfect voice for it. What they would do is, like, everybody would be there for worship. It would be wide open, and the way they worship for the Quakers is very different from the way that we might do it in the Catholic religion or Christian religion or whatever. They don't have a priest or anything like that. Everybody just kind of sits there in silence, and they talk directly to God, and they do, they may get messages, they may not, they just like reflection kind of thing. And then when the worship services were over, then they would bring down these slats in the wall, and they would separate it out, because then the women would be talking about business in their end, and they wouldn't interfere with the men's business in their end. And it was in no way to be sexist at all. It was just that they had two different types of business that they'd be talking about, whether they be, with farming or this or that, or like whatever it might be. And that way they wouldn't interfere with each other, and they wouldn't have to compete with each other to try to go back and forth between different subjects. That way each side could concentrate on what they needed to talk about. So it wasn't sexist at all, even though it was considered to be not equal at some point, as Otis mentioned. They still kept with this format. I don't know that they still do that to this day. To this day, those slats may not come down at all, but they they do still use this place as a place of worship. And I know because like I see the little notifications come up here and there, whether it be in my email or on Facebook, because I've now subscribed to their pages and stuff. And they did give me a really, really nice call out for this, and they really appreciated the video. Anyway, on with the video.
By closing a wooden screen in the center of the room, the men's meeting for business and the women's meeting for business could be held separately and simultaneously. The double meeting house is quintessentially American and is a representation of the Americanism of the Quaker religion, in which women are complete equals to men. The Byberry Friends Meeting House is a quintessential example of the double meeting house. The plan created two chambers identical on both the interior and exterior. It is a substantial meeting house of 36 foot by 66 foot. The overall appearance is unassuming and elegant in its simplicity. The only differences between the chambers at Byberry is that in the gallery of the men's side, the west side, a stair leads up to the attic and the side doors are in different bays. On the men's side, the side door is in the center bay. On the women's side, the east, the door is in the north bay. On the women's side, this door led into an antechamber that provided access to the outside, but also directly to the outhouse without leaving the building.
It's where they poop.
The men's outhouse was attached to the back of the meeting house on the north at the northwest corner, but there was no interior access. The Byberry Friends Meeting House remains virtually unchanged and represents the equality of American Quakers.
Now we get into Byberry Hall, the abolitionist movement, stuff like that.
Byberry Hall was constructed between 1846 and 1847 by Robert Purvis and Harriet Fortin Purvis. Robert Purvis was an African American who was a leading abolitionist and promoter of women's rights. He considered himself simply an advocate of human rights, black, white, male, or female. His parents abhorred slavery, and the family was deeply involved in the abolition movement. Robert and his two brothers attended the Pennsylvania Abolitionist Society's Clarkson School for grammar school. The family were frequent guests at the home of abolitionist James Fortin. When Robert was 16, his father died, leaving the family a great deal of wealth. Robert spent time at Amherst Academy, but returned to Philadelphia in the mid-1820s. Using some of the wealth left by his father, as well as other resources, Robert began buying and selling real estate, parlaying the inheritance into even greater wealth. He married Harriet Fortin shortly after his return in 1832. Harriet Fortin was the daughter of James Fortin, often referred to as the wealthiest African American in Philadelphia during his life. From the earliest age, Harriet and her siblings were encouraged to participate in both suffrage and abolition activities. The Fortin and Purvis families were instrumental in establishment of some of the most influential organizations for enacting social change to both of these causes. Robert and Harriet bought a house in the center of Philadelphia and eventually had 8 children and a governess to manage them. Racial tensions in Philadelphia exploded into race riots in the late 1830s. The Purvises were regular targets of these. At least twice, the mobs went directly to the Purvises' residence, threatening to burn it down with the occupants inside. After this happened 2 nights in a row in 1842, Robert took his family and moved to the country for safety.
The country.
The Purvises moved to Byberry Township. Their farm, called Harmony Hall, bordered the meeting house complex both to the north and to the south. This move was by no means the end of their activities. The Purvises regularly traveled 14 miles to Philadelphia to attend abolitionist meetings and anti-slavery fairs, but more notably, Harmony Hall became a hub of abolitionist activity. It is thought as many as 1 slave a day was harbored at Harmony Hall. Between this and their previous house in the city, Total people assisted on the Underground Railroad is estimated to approximately 9,000 by Robert and Harriet.
It's a lot.
Shortly after their arrival in 1846, they purchased the lot bordering the meeting house property to the east and constructed Byberry Hall. Byberry Hall was also intended as a public meeting space. Until this point, abolitionist lectures were occasionally held in the meeting house, including in 1844 when the Friends somewhat reluctantly let Frederick Douglass deliver a lecture there. But the Quaker Friends felt that such a contentious subject was not appropriate in the same space as meeting for worship. Byberry Hall provided a place to have open discussions about race, as well as education and social issues. It was intended from the start as a space to speak freely in community meetings, educational lectures, and debates. Purvis sold the hall to the trustees of Byberry Hall, an organization he founded with others. The trustees
Thank you,
remained
Monica.
active well into the 20th century and were entwined with the meeting. He remained an active member of the trustees throughout his life in Byberry. The hall was also used for meetings of the Byberry Philosophical Society, which Purvis was a member, and the Byberry Literary Society, which started in 1858. Township elections were moved from the schoolhouse to the hall shortly after its construction.
Now,
Byberry
you will notice that there was like a little karate symbols over the or people, whatever you want to call that, over the right there on right underneath where it says the parental advisory thing. That's because this place became a taekwondo place for kids for a while. And when we get inside there and you see the footage from the inside, you can kind of tell that it was. And the original wood paneling on the inside is still underneath everything. And from what I understand from talking to the woman that gave me the tour, they plan on revitalizing that, bringing it back to its original glory and the way it looked. But even just walking in the place, you could tell that this was definitely a place of meeting just by the way your voice carries in there. Like it carries in such a way that no matter where you stand, anybody that's there could hear you. So, more side notes.
Byberry Hall was a rural center for the purposes to host abolitionists from throughout the Northeast, including, amongst others, William Lloyd Garrison, James and Lucretia Mott, and Frederick Douglass. It is likely that William Still also spoke here, as he worked closely with Purvis for the Vigilance Committee. The Purvises were also vocal believers in women's rights. They hosted Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton at their home, and likely these women also spoke in Byberry Hall. Although the Purvises were not members of the Byberry meeting, they appear to have been on good terms with the members, not just through their connections with Byberry Hall. They were known to attend meeting when Lucretia Mott spoke there. Their children went to Byberry School, which was the only integrated school in the area until the 1850s. Robert Purvis was a member of the Byberry Philosophical Society, which, although not a Quaker organization, was dominated by members of the meeting. He donated land to the meeting to extend the new burial ground in which two of his sons were buried. In 1847, Robert was hired to oversee the closure of the Freedmen's Savings Bank, a post that required him to spend a great deal of time in Washington, D.C. Harriet and her daughter moved from Byberry to a row house downtown in what is now called the Spring Garden neighborhood.
Not a good neighborhood. not the worst, but not a good one.
Harriet died shortly afterwards.
Now it's me. While walking through the burial grounds, looking at some of the older headstones, I saw some very familiar names. Walton, Knight, Tomlinson, Comley, and Richardson, just to name a few. Looking at these markers, I now know how a lot of the local streets and areas got their names. Inside the wall that runs parallel to Byberry Road are the oldest markers. In keeping with earlier traditions of Friends, many of the burials were not marked with headstones. However, there is a map of sorts inside the meeting house that shows the names and locations of all who were buried there. I thought it fitting to put it in words instead of just say it. since I was doing the voiceover for it. So that's the end of that one. Let me get that out of here. So those are the two videos I wanted to show you today. The only link that they have is that they're both historical. So the first one, we went to Washington's Crossing, where George Washington crossed the Delaware. And then in this second video, we got to learn all about the Byberry Friends Meeting House, the Quakers, the schoolhouse, Byberry Hall, abolitionist movements, the leading person in the abolitionist movement, Robert Purvis and his wife. And his brothers were, as it was briefly mentioned, his brothers were all involved in that as well. I mean, 9,000 slaves that they harbored there to help free them. And there's a place not really far from there. It's actually walking distance from the Friends meeting place, which again, their Harmony Hall was like literally right there, right across what's a street now. I don't think it was at the time. There is a burial ground for freed slaves, and it was made by the Quakers. So because it was made by the Quakers, there's no markers, there's no headstones, but it's near where I've done a video, a few different videos actually, at the abandoned prison farm. So if you wanted to go to my channel and check out the abandoned prison farm, I don't bring up the I don't think I bring up the burial site at all. But it's not far from there, and I don't know exactly where it is. There are people that do, or they believe they do, and it's. I mean, the abandoned prison farm is a good story all on its own. So if you go and watch them, make sure you watch the first video, because that's where all the history is. The next couple times I go there is just to revisit it, explore, see what's changed and stuff like that. So yeah. Anyway, Monica, I'm glad you loved them. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. You know, you're one of the what's up, Dustin? You guys are some of the few people that have actually been watching, but I understand, you know, it's early in the day. A lot of people were at work and stuff like that. So hopefully a lot of people watch the replay. If you're watching the replay, please feel free to put a comment up there just saying, hey, watching the replay, something like that. I mean, if not, I'll see the analytics and we'll see how this video goes. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, I don't really have just got home. Cool. Well, you can go back and rewatch it all if you didn't catch the beginning where I did Washington's Crossing and stuff. It's not a really long video. I didn't go real in depth in the Washington Crossing. I will someday. I'll get back there. But for now, that's the only one I have of it. But it's still cool to see the history of it. So as I was mentioning in the beginning, I don't really have a set day or time that I'm doing these. This is Tom's World, since this is the second one that I'm doing this week. I'm just kind of testing the waters. I'm going to see how things go here on BB3. And if the video, like if my lives, if they don't do well, no big deal. You know, I gave it a shot. I'm making my YouTube videos regardless. You've never been to Washington Crossing? You got to go, man. It's cool. It's very cool. You can walk across the bridge. You can see in the video, if you go back and watch it after this is done, I actually walk across the bridge that goes over into Jersey. So you could park on the Bucks County side and then walk into Jersey, which is a weird feeling, leaving your car in one state and walking to another. But it was cool. And the Jersey side has some stuff to see too. I mean, it's going to be a long walk, and all along the area, like I said, I think within like a 5-mile radius, there's all different kinds of stuff. There's Bowman's Tower, like all different. You could do your research on Washington's Crossing Park, and you'll be able to see everything that they have to offer there. It's really cool. And someday, maybe, as I said, maybe when I reach 1,000 subscribers, maybe I will forego my fear of heights and go up into Bowman's Tower. Maybe, maybe we'll see. But yeah, if the lives that I'm doing for these videos, if they don't do well, you know, no big deal. I'm not going to be butthurt over it. It's just something I'm trying, just so that we can get a little more variety here on BB3 TV, because really that's our tagline. You know, you're home for variety entertainment. And we have a lot of really, really good paranormal shows, a lot of good people on here, and they have excellent shows. But I want to get more. I want to get more things that aren't paranormal. I want to keep what we have. Don't get me wrong. And I've mentioned that before. I don't want anybody to go away. I want to keep everyone that we have, every show that we have. but I want to try to get more of a variety of stuff going on, which is why I'm glad that Dustin and Taryn have been starting to venture out into the whole Gettysburg thing, because it's different, it's exploring, which is right up my alley. Obviously, I mean, in my videos, I do a lot of exploring and everything. Did it do really well? I actually didn't look back at it, Dustin, because yesterday I was like super tired. I went through I went through a hell of a week, a couple of hangovers, one of which is kind of Dom's fault, but it's not. From when I did the last Tom's World video, I did that on a Monday, and then all of a sudden he's calling me up at the end of my live. He's calling me because of his lack of observational skills. He doesn't realize that I'm on a live, and he's calling me to ask me if I want to do a live later. Just two this week. I I had one hangover on Tuesday, and then I had another one on Thursday. But the one on Thursday was really mild compared to the one on Tuesday. I mean, that show that we did with Psychic Cindy and Chaos, you could see by the end, I was like ready to dip out. I was so tired because by then I had 2 full days of work in, and getting up at 5:30 in the morning. And by that point, it was like close to 11 o'clock or close to 10 something. I can't remember exactly what time it was. I still had to put out the trash and everything, and I knew all that. And you can actually see at the end of that video that we had Psychic Cindy on at the end. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna dip out, and like Dom stops me, and he starts to end the show and all that. Yeah, it was a fun week for that. But yeah, as I was saying, like, I mean, if my videos don't do well, I don't get butthurt over it. I'll answer your question in a second, Monica. I won't get butthurt over it. This is Tom's World Live will go away, and I'll just continue to post my videos, a link to my videos on my YouTube channel, as I have been, even though nobody really clicks on them. Yeah, I'm giving you all a guilt trip again. And I'll continue to do that just so that I have another place that my YouTube videos go out to, because once I make my videos, I do whore them out on Facebook a little bit. But it's all part of the process. If you want to become monetized and everything, you gotta work at it. It just doesn't come easy to you unless you have like a really super cool channel, which I think mine is, but it's not everybody's cup of tea, as I said in the video earlier. As far as what I do for a job, I work at a state park here in PA. Well, you're in PA too. I don't know why I said that. It's just outside of Philadelphia in the suburbs. It's called Neshaminy State Park. I'm part of the maintenance team there. We do a lot of stuff. I mean, we pick up trash, we clean the bathrooms, stuff like that, but we do a lot of the maintenance of the park as well. So it can be very, very tiring being outside and in the elements and stuff like that, especially in the summer. I got a taste of that last year when I started back in August. It was really hot. We have an in-ground pool in there, which is run and operated and owned by somebody outside of the state, or not meaning outside of the state, but like outside of working for the state. It's a person, like just a guy that owns it and runs it. And that causes a lot of people to come there, a lot of people to barbecue there, because we have barbecues all over the place, picnic tables and stuff like that, which causes a lot of trash. We get a lot of the inner city people coming up last year or the last couple of years because due to the pandemic, a lot of things have been shut down in the city. So they weren't able to go to the pools and the water places and stuff like that in the city. And I'm just now looking down to see. Yes, they did do reenactments there at Neshaminy State Park. So you're familiar with it. It's a beautiful place. It really is. It became, as I started doing my videos there in the beginning, it became like my favorite place in the world, especially going to the garden, which you guys probably never even seen when you were there, like never even knew about, because there's people that have been going there every day, walking the trails and stuff like that for exercise. There's people that have been going there every day for years, decades, and they never even knew about it. Even if they passed it, they didn't know what it was. And now me and a bunch of other volunteers, back when I was a volunteer, we went in, we dug up all the little brick paths and everything. There's a human chessboard in there. There's a Humpty Dumpty up on a wall. There's an old reflecting pond or reflecting pool, but it's filled in with dirt right now. We're going to put flowers in that. There's an old wall fountain at the bottom of it. They already have dirt in there. I don't know why I say we when I say that, because I'm no longer part of the volunteers, because I can't be an employee and a volunteer at the same time. So I had to step down from that. We did raise a decent amount of money, about $2,000, a little over $2,000 through a GoFundMe, for them to use for whatever they need to help fix it up, put flowers in there and stuff. We just have to follow the guidelines. They have to be native, non-invasive flowers. They have to be, well, that's about it, native and non-invasive. And they have to be approved by the park manager, who is also my boss's boss. So, but I have a very good rapport with both of them, my boss and my boss's boss, because I've been dealing with them since I was a volunteer. And now, I guess the volunteers kind of have a little in having me in there. Not that I have much influence, but I can help in some ways. So, yeah, it is a beautiful place. It's extremely peaceful, especially in the very early morning. We start at 7 o'clock. The gates don't have to open until 8 o'clock. Most times we open them before 8 o'clock. But just going into the far off trails, like say right into the corner where Neshaminy Creek meets the Delaware River, and there's a trash can down there where I got to change out the trash every day, and I'll just stand there for a few minutes and just listen, and you can hear the birds and just the water. It's extremely peaceful. So I've gone from only loving the garden to loving the entire park, and now being part of the team that takes care of it and getting paid for it is awesome. Plus it's a state job, so sweet, pension and all that. Anyway, I've rambled and rambled and rambled, because I will do that about Neshaminy State Park. Oh yeah, there's eagles, there's eagles, there's herons, there's another kind of bird. It kind of looks like a hawk but bigger, and I'm trying to remember what they're called. Ospreys, something like that. I know there's a lot of them there. There's turkey vultures. There's there's wild turkeys. I just saw them the other day for the first time. I just yesterday saw an entire herd of deer there, which up until this point, I'd only ever seen like one deer at a time, like once or twice. But then I got to see an entire herd yesterday. They were running for me when I was driving around in there. There's skunks, which aren't necessarily a good thing, but I've seen them. There's foxes. The groundhogs. All different kinds of wildlife in this place. And it's great because the people that owned, I'm going to ramble some more. The people that owned that land where the garden was, they very much believed in and appreciated every life form, whether it was like an insect all the way up to human and everywhere in between. And they thought that everything should have a chance to live and stuff like that. So they were always very much about that. They had many cats on the premises that just lived in the wild, and they would feed them every day. They did have a thing about cats for some reason. I think it had something to do with the religion that they wound up adopting in their midlives. Yeah, I can't remember what the hell it's called, the religion. Yeah, I'm not even going to try, because even if I remembered, I don't know how to pronounce it right. But yeah, it is a magical place. It really is. And I have many times, even when I'm not making a video, just walk around there, even before I started working there, just walk around and just listen and watch and observe. And it's not that big, really. It's just over 330 acres. That sounds pretty big compared to the land that we own here in my house, being a row home. And I'm in between two houses, so I got like a little strip of lawn in the front, and then a little bit of a backyard with a hill in it, and that's it. But yeah, this place, it is truly magical. So for those of you watching, which right now there's actually more of you watching than there have been all along. Once again, just to recap, in this live, we watched two different videos. One was me going to Washington's Crossing, where Washington crossed the Delaware, and showing the documentary style type video that I did. Oh, my goddess is here, Stephanie. I can't wait to see you. Only a mere couple hours, maybe. Wow, I really got sidetracked on that one. So we watched those. And if you enjoyed me talking about Neshaminy State Park, then you're really, really going to enjoy whenever I do go live next time. Because the next time I go live, which I definitely will be doing, I just don't know when. So you got to keep a watch out on your notifications on Facebook or YouTube. We also go live on Twitch, which I don't think anybody is watching on there. Let me see. Actually, yeah, there's one person watching on Twitch. There's always one person watching on Twitch. I will be going live again sometime in the next week. So just keep an eye out on your notifications. I'm probably going to do it on a day when I'm not working, which is Fridays and Saturdays. And I'm going to start the chronicles of going to Neshaminy State Park. I'll spare you all the first video because the first video is super long. I was looking for the garden. I went everywhere but where the garden was. I mean, yeah, it's nice to see the rest of the park and everything like that, but I'll start with the one where I did find the garden. And then as time goes on, there's a video where it's already been told to me that I could become a volunteer and that we could start digging up the old trails, the old human chessboard, the playing cards with the little spade planters and everything like that, which we did all of that. It was a lot of hard work in very, very hot weather, like June, July, August, even into September. And you could see in some of my videos that like my shirt is darker than when I started the video. And that's because I'm sweating from head to toe, but I'm working hard because I love this place and I wanted to re-expose it. I wanted to bring it back, and we have. And it still has more work to be done, but it's going to be on the volunteers now and not me. But still, there's a whole series of videos chronicling each time I was there, what I did, and showing what the other volunteers did, because we weren't always there on the same days. I would go during the week. They were there on the weekends. And it really was a trip. It was, especially before I knew about the other volunteers, which you'll see on day number 2 of the garden restoration. So whenever we get to that, I don't remember how long each of those videos are. Maybe next time I can do like a few videos if they're not too long, and maybe you'll get to see day 2 of the garden restoration. I was surprised to find out that there was somebody else doing work, and they eventually became volunteers. So, and my reaction is genuine too, because you can hear the excitement in my voice. Like, wow, look at this. Somebody's doing this. Anyway, rambled long enough. Steph, I'm sure you're probably done work by now. You can just shoot me a message. Let me know what time I can expect you, because I cannot wait. And for everybody else, I hope you've all enjoyed this. Make sure that you continue to share out, not just my show, but every show on BB3 TV. We are just under 3,000 followers last time I looked. That is phenomenal. I mean, I never would have thought when me and Dom started this thing that it would get to this point. And the route, like the sky's the limit. Like there is no limit really. It's I guess that's what that means. The sky's the limit because it's limitless. Whatever. And I appreciate each and every one of you, as does everybody here at BB3 TV. All of the owners, all of the hosts, everybody. We all appreciate every one of you. Everybody that continues to come back and comment. Make sure you continue to share us out. If there's shows on our network that you think that somebody else might like, make sure you let them know, hey, go check out this network, BB3 TV. They're on Facebook. They're on YouTube. Not every show on Facebook is on YouTube, but we have to change that sometime really soon. And yes, I do know that some of the hosts have asked, and not everybody has gotten that yet, but we'll get that all situated. We'll get everybody on Twitch so that everybody's shows can go to there as well. Everybody also has their own individual pages where they show their shows. So, make sure in addition to liking BB3 TV that you go like their individual pages. And I'm going to get out of here because I'm going to continue to ramble, because now, I don't know. It's just at that point. So anyway, once again, thank you, everybody. And we love you all. And I will see you next time.